And looks like 2. Hi, folks. Welcome to Cybersecurity Office Hours. I'm Tarah Wheeler, CEO of Red Queen Dynamics, and I'd like to complain with you all this week. It's going to be a lot of fun. I am so honored and grateful to have a dear friend, colleague, and an amazing peer with us here in cybersecurity today, my good friend, James Bierly. James Bierly is the founder and principal of principal cybersecurity consultant for Secure Point Solutions, a small business-focused security firm that works with clients from 1 to 100 plus users. With 13 years in the Navy, thank you for your service, operating on both surface ships and on submarines, which is awesome, James had an unusual transition from military to civilian. From physical security to selling cars, James ultimately found opportunities to learn information technology while working overseas. He has 16 years of experience working with state and local agencies, ag tech, and technology giants Microsoft and HP. He is married to an amazing woman and together are raising 4 children and 3 dogs for the imminent zombie apocalypse in Adel, Iowa. James, thank you so very much for being with us today. It's
Absolutely.
Yeah. So anything new in your existence this last week?
Tinkering with hopefully building out our own security product that will scale for those really small businesses. It's certainly hard to sell something that has a minimum of 100 licenses when the company only has 2 computers. So it's a battle that we face, but we've decided, you know what, screw it. We're going to stop buying. We're going to start building where we can. So that's probably the biggest thing that we're just excited for.
All right. I am super glad to hear that. This is a hard field to help people in. And one of the things that I've noticed as we've been doing the work we have at Red Queen Dynamics is the amount of tribal, geographic, vertically but not horizontally integrated companies that are out there providing support to small businesses. It's a super weird world, and getting a message to people is incredibly difficult. And when you do, you're not sure how top of mind those messages become, I think. So the reason James and I are here to talk with everybody today, and please, everybody, this is office hours. We're hanging out. We're basically having like coffee and chilling and getting a chance to hang out with each other while answering questions. We're just doing it to help out the community. So anytime you want to jump in with any questions, we're going to stop and answer your question. We got plenty to talk about. We always end up having plenty to talk about. But I know that one of the biggest challenges that I and so many other business leaders and people in small businesses face is cognitive load. And this is so funny. Okay, so James, I was thinking about this last night, actually, as we were talking. We're actually here on a team offsite in Las Vegas, Nevada. And I was thinking about this last night, and I was like, I wonder if there's some perspective that I have as a woman who grew up in rural Oregon, where I did a lot of the housework around the house. I contributed a lot to the family, and there was a lot, there were gendered expectations. And I wonder if I noticed the cognitive load on small business owners and MSPs regarding cybersecurity, and that's at least part of my motivation for doing this. Like, I'm going to give you an example from this Judd Apatow movie. It's called This Is 40. I remember watching this, and I have not exactly weaponized this example before in my conversations with my lovely spouse, Stevie and Olaf, who's actually way better at just about everything than me, including cleaning the house. But I remember this moment where it's Leslie Mann and Paul Rudd, like in the morning in the kitchen with their kids running around, screaming, going crazy. And Paul Rudd is sitting there like eating cereal and reading a newspaper, like kind of clearly getting ready in his head for work. Leslie Mann's busy packing the lunches and getting the kids ready. And I skinned my sign this form and patch up my boo-boo. And what do I do about this girl? And just this huge, and she's got to remember the doctor's appointments and who canceled what and who's driving where. And she finally throws something up in the air and says, "Can you help me?" And Paul Rudd looks up from his newspaper. He's like, "Absolutely. Just tell me exactly what to do." And he's there, but he's taken on none of the cognitive load, the emotional work that she has to do in that moment. And I sit there and I thought to myself, this is the thing that gets me out of bed every day, is solving this cognitive load in cybersecurity. And it's what we're trying to do here. But my God, we have this sort of like conflict between MSPs that I think are managing the cognitive load for small businesses with cybersecurity, and small businesses that are like, okay, cool, tell me exactly what to do. And they've got like 4 minutes of their attention for you. And you're like, fine, do this, and this at least gets some of it off of
Yeah.
your plate as well as mine. Does that make any sense? Does this resonate with you, James?
Oh yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Having walked both sides of that, working at an MSP and trying to do security there, and then running a security firm, basically for those same kind of clients, it's very different, because our side here is, it's a combination of, it's proactive and reactive, but everything is just one item to deal with after another. It's a very ordered list for the most part. But from an MSP standpoint, you run into the things of, okay, this customer has this and that causes problems for us from time to time, or this customer has a different workflow. I mean, I probably have supported 50 construction companies over the time, and not a single one of them had much in the way of common line of business apps, workflows, how they use those applications, and trying to maintain all that tribal knowledge, when you got to run from one ticket to another ticket, just, you had to keep it in your head. And that creates such a huge drop off in knowledge transfer, because somebody will leave that MSP screaming like the hair's on fire, and going into like corporate IT or something, and then everyone's like, does anyone know why this customer is calling for this thing? We didn't even know they had this thing. Oh, well, Bob installed it 6 months before he left. Well, thanks, Bob. So I get it.
Yeah, I've seen that happen so many times. Institutional knowledge getting lost as there's employee movement around companies, but also just, I want to say this super respectfully. Small businesses, it's not their job to do what we do, right? Like, James is an incredible MSSP who supports small businesses with security in Iowa and belong. I've referred and beyond. I've referred multiple customers to him. He's good at what he does, and it is a hard job to do. And yet at the same time, and we built a product that assists small, MSPs to kind of manage that cognitive load with small businesses. And yet I look at this and I think to myself, there's not enough time in the day. And what's more, small businesses shouldn't have to remember. They shouldn't have to bear cognitive load for security when that's not the thing they do for a living.
Right.
And I think it's super closely related to this sort of like stupid user tricks, PEBCAC attitude that some of those of us who've been in InfoSec for too long kind of have about stupid user tricks. I think that's a real reflection of contempt towards people that aren't dumber than us. They just have different skill sets. I work with law firms, accounting firms, transportation firms. I don't want to be a lawyer. I told my parents that a long time ago. I don't want to be a doctor. I don't want to be an accountant. The stuff that I want to do is this, and I respectfully don't want to have cognitive load from my taxes or my expense processing. I don't want to have any of it. I want my accountant who uses QuickBooks to tell me what I'm supposed to do in 5 minutes or less, and I want to be done with it, right? Because I don't have the capacity to get the expertise that they've got in finances, and I don't expect that my customers have the capacity to get my expertise in cybersecurity.
Exactly. We didn't go into business to do taxes, to run payroll. We have people or services that do that, and they do it way better than we can hope. At this point, to learn how to do it. It's hopefully error free, and it's done in a lot less time. So yeah, and that applies to any business. If you started a business, you didn't go into business because you were super excited about running payroll, or you were super excited about deciding what your technology spend was going to be for the next year. You had an idea, you wanted to sell a thing, and that's where you're at. And having trusted professionals around you to say, hey, legally, you probably shouldn't do that. Or, hey, you should probably pay your taxes. Or, hey, you should probably do something about your security before your whole business gets flipped upside down. So yeah, it's specialization is totally okay, especially if you are good at doing something else.
I think it's super important to recognize that this isn't about people that are too dumb to understand cybersecurity. And I often have to communicate that to the people I'm talking to who are at these accounting firms and legal firms. And I know, James, you work with some government agencies. You know, we talk with and work with companies, including people that are MSPs, right?
Mm-hmm.
Who they talk to me, and like one of the first things out of their mouth is, "I'm so sorry. I feel like such an idiot that I don't know this." And they'll say that, and they don't do it about anything else in their lives, but about security, about InfoSec, they do. And I really think it's because we've made people feel so bad about
Oh.
things. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, like we've made people feel bad about this, and now they're scared to ask for help.
I've railed against this with people. You know, there's always the users are the weak link, and I get what is trying to be said there, what's trying to be conveyed, but I think just calling somebody weak is really a poor way to start a conversation, or a poor way to start you know, a presentation. And I've seen that. Yeah. Bryson Bort actually said a while back on Twitter, he said users are not the weak link. They just represent the largest attack surface. And I love that because they do. And I think you and I have talked about that before, where it's like they have computers, they have phones. There's a billion different ways that you can get to a person, you know, and I mean, your significant other is a prime example of that. Without picking up a phone, without picking up a computer, without writing a single exploit, he has compromised people 6 ways from Sunday. And
Yeah,
because there are so many ways.
That's how he got me to say yes. No.
Yeah, I'm sure. You know, like you probably open it up like, oh, Big Mac. Wait, that's a ring? What the F? Like, no. So
No joke. Yeah,
social engineered his way into your heart.
he did.
That's how they get us. Like that, you know, it's how they get people.
Yeah,
But
those warm, happy, lovable, charismatic people. I'm just walking around here nerding harder, you know, and you bump into them, you look up and you go, oh, oh no, oh my God.
Oh no. Oh, I thought he was on a plane. Apparently he paid for the Wi-Fi.
He is on a plane, and I'm going to bet you a large number of the poker bankroll that I have in my pocket that he did not pay for the Wi-Fi. So folks, oh, hey, Michael, how you doing? So Michael's a good friend as well too. Yeah, and just for folks, by the way, who are talking about this, Michael Olson, good friend of mine, and a great human being, a volunteer for Operation Safe Escape, just showing up here in the comments. I do believe Michael is looking for a role in cybersecurity, so keep your eyes out, folks. Maybe have a conversation with him. And Dave didn't pay for the Wi-Fi. I knew it. So what I want to do, like, we're here for the community on this one, right? And we want to have this conversation because it's meaningful. But it's actually great that my lovely spouse, who is messaging now and not in any way, shape, or form trolling, has also shown some real hospitality, because a lot of what he does in physical security, and James, I know you've done this before too, is not just sort of the everyday lock picking. A lot of what, you know, kind of he and we, now all of us, do is use physical security and some basic concepts in physical security as examples to explain to people why single points of failure in information security systems are so dangerous. Because that's also a little bit where the FUD comes in for small businesses and MSPs. But sometimes you got to shake people out of it and get something through that cognitive load and go, look, you have a very serious problem. And unless you address it, you are vulnerable and you're liable and you're doing wrong by your customers.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I really appreciated that. I'm actually here in Las Vegas right now, in Deviant Space. I'm sitting in Red Team Alliance right now. I'm in the pro shop, and there's just all these cool tools and stuff. Half of them I have no idea what they are, much less how to use them. When I think about like single points of failure, this is the thing that I do on stage, in keynotes and everything like that. And this is a Master Lock 141 with a comb overlay tool. You know, I walk on stage and I do that reliably to explain to people, you know, a single point of failure that is visible and obvious to security professionals may not be obvious to everybody. But if you know where this vulnerability is and you have the correct tool for it, which may be unrecognizable to somebody else, you can walk in anywhere that exists. And I have used this example right here. And the next two words I said were eternal blue. want to cry, not petch it. Just explaining to people that sometimes you do have to get through that cognitive load. I think it's our responsibility as people that serve the people who serve small businesses to tell them when that's important and when they need to calm the hell down.
Yeah. Well, and I think, and you kind of, it was funny, you pulling out the quick stick like that kind of shows just that difference in, there's that lock could be popped open with a variety of tools. And in some cases, it's important to convey to them and say, look, this lock, and I don't have a lock in my hand, but I can kill it with just this tiny little, single rake. Hell, I could probably hit it with something hard enough and it pops open, so when you can start showing people saying, look, the whole idea of security is to create friction, whether it's physical security, cybersecurity. You want to create more barriers to your adversary so that they've gotten to the point in saying, okay, I didn't bring the right tool with me, so I better go home and go pick on somebody else.
It is. It's Amanda. Yeah.
That.
I love that, Amanda. Yeah. No, well, I did. And you know how I did it? I asked nicely. You'd be startled how well that works. So just letting you know, babe, I changed my mind about where I was going to do the filming today. But no, it's a great facility. This is where my lovely spouse and his company do trainings. And actually, Red Queen Dynamics, we actually came here on site this week, and we got to do a corporate. What's the word I'm looking for again?
Like an escape room or something, or
well, we did a team building exercise here, so we got the greatest highlights of everything. And I finally got a chance to do stuff I never gotten a chance to do before, like key molding and stuff like that. Just some of this stuff is like magic. And for the non-technical members of the team, like we got a great new head of sales come aboard. This is just, it's wild. It's eye-opening for those of us in security like that. James, do you remember that moment when you first picked a lock and you were like, oh shit, this is, what was that like for you?
It was kind of the holy crap, that was awesome. Now let me go find another lock. And I think honestly, an even better example is my oldest son. He picked a lock out of necessity. I had some luggage that somehow the code was set and I didn't know what the code was. I didn't have the time to deal with it because I actually had 4 pieces of luggage. And I said, hey, take this stuff and see if you can pop these. He popped one, he popped another. And I said, hey, by the way, our local B-Sides is coming up in a few weeks. Since you're a student, you can come for free. You want to go? Yeah. And he picked every lock that the guys from Tool had, to the point that they sat there and they're like, oh, he's about to open up the magic box. So they slapped a handcuff on it and we're like, get through that now. And he just kept going. But I know how that is, because you do that, whether it's physical security, it's network security. You do it once and you're like, oh my gosh, I learned a magic spell and I want to go do it again. And I want to go do it again and again and again. Obviously, doing it responsibly is the key part. But once you get to that point, and that kind of applies back to, we all got in the business for different reasons. Somebody got in business because they're really great at building transmissions, and they probably fixed a transmission and they started it up and it worked and they were like, oh my gosh, now I can make money off of doing what I enjoy. And it's just the parallel. We enjoy doing this stuff. We enjoy popping locks, popping shells on machines. We don't necessarily enjoy the writing reports part, but that's how we get paid. Nobody cares about the lock that you pop. It's the report that you have to write later on that actually is what gets that check cashed.
I think about that a lot, and I think about the fact that at every point there is friction. So I know Dave just super loves the fact that you pointed out that security isn't there to make things impenetrable forever, right? The idea is to create that friction and to serve the correct purpose, right? Like I learned, a couple of days ago when we did this, I got a chance to really learn a bunch of stuff that I haven't had a chance to learn yet systematically. It was so great. One of those things was really, truly the difference between a privacy lock, a secure lock, and a seal. I hadn't really processed the difference between a privacy lock and a seal. Privacy lock is like the button you push on a bathroom door where you're like, please don't come in here. Somebody's in the room. It's not like you couldn't just like yank the handle open, right? It's intended to tell you you're not supposed to be someplace. And a seal isn't intended to keep you out. It's intended to tell someone that someone got in
it. Yep.
Right. And I was like so fascinated by this concept. I love it. And I use these concepts to explain to, MSPs and SMBs, especially when they feel bad about not knowing stuff. We learn things like every single day. Like 2 days ago, I was looking at this and I was like, I don't know what to do with this, right? It turns out you can use just this one little pick right here. I'm going to see if I can do this. I'm so sorry if I do this the wrong way, but where'd it go? There, boom. Right, like it's that fast. And here's the thing, you hand this to somebody, if they don't know how to do it, then they could sit here and fiddle with it forever. This is not particularly easy to pick. It's easy to bypass, but I look at that and go, if you know the trick, it's instant.
Yep.
And that right there is that weight. Dave told us that a high security lock is considered to be something that takes an expert at least 5 minutes to get into. 5 minutes is a high security lock. It's mind blowing, right?
That's that friction part. That's, you don't expect an expert to necessarily break into your chiropractor office that you run. But if you want to have that level of security, you would put that sort of lock in there. What you don't want is you don't want to take the one that I can go off to Amazon and buy the camper key and pop that open and, hey, look, I'm now inside your patient files or whatever the case. And again, and those things all still apply at the network security level. Having stuff open to the internet. That's the camper key of digital security, where it's like anybody with a password list could probably, cause trouble.
I just got a question in DM, and it's a good one for you. When you are communicating with a small business about vulnerabilities that they may be experiencing, especially when you've seen them before, there's a pattern of this happening either at that company for a long time or across multiple companies, given something going on. What is the biggest? This is kind of a sensitive question. What's the thing you think you do the worst at when it comes to that communication and getting that point across?
I think this is a industry-wide thing, especially when we're talking to customers, like our target customers, your kid's dentist office or the coffee shop down the street that has a couple computers, is that we start throwing out those words, CVEs and remote code execution and blah, blah, blah. All of those, like, don't do that. These are holes. You talked about the lock and you say, okay, customer, your computer has a vulnerability. And what that means is that somebody could come along with a tool and pop it open. Mm-hmm. And, and maybe making sure they understand, because we've all seen it on LinkedIn. There could be some vulnerability that comes out and it's a popular product and people want to quickly dunk on it on social media. But then those that actually will read that will say, well, you have to be on the machine to make that exploit work.
Yeah.
That's a vulnerability if you have somebody that's in your building already mashing keys. So let's talk about what's realistic about this. If I can get to it from outside, but I don't need to set foot in your building, then it's a problem. You have a hole in your network. Somebody can go and use it. It just like you said, or like you showed, I've got a whole bunch of lock picks. I got a whole bunch of tools in here, but if I can use the simplest one, or hell, if I can go and, Terry, you got a bobby pin? I'm going to go all Fallout mode on it and just pop it in there. And it's done and over with. And we've all seen that both in physical security and digital security, because it's, there's the easy ones, there's the hard ones. So taking away all the techno jargon out of it and just saying, look, this application, this computer, there is a hole. Somebody there's a keyhole, and somebody now actually knows how to use the key to pop that open, and they shouldn't be able to. So how do we fix that? Well, we seal the hole. We keep them from getting access to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, keeping it simple. And
Totally.
at an area that I harp on so much, not necessarily about vulnerabilities, but everyone at least is familiar with the concept of a car and how cars work and how they're built to make you safe. So relating all that stuff to, to people is so much more impactful. And I just realized, like, now without my name across there, I have my social engineering hard hat back there. So I was like, oh my gosh, what's that? Oh, that's my social engineering hard hat.
What is that? It reminds me, this has got to be, I think maybe 5-6 years ago. Do you remember when Wi-Fi crack came out? KRACK?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
it's so I got interviewed by a couple of, journalists and stuff like that. And my favorite one was Teen Vogue. Called me up and was like, "Hey, we're doing more and more work, keeping people safe who are maybe not as familiar with this. Can you tell us, is this something that we should be concerned about?" And I said, "Well, Wi-Fi crack is a very serious vulnerability, where somebody who is within range of your home Wi-Fi can get into and can monitor a bunch of stuff. This is getting fixed a lot of places." And I said, "But respectfully, if you're a 17-year-old girl at home and there's a hoodie looking shady outside your house, sitting in a car, staring up at your window and pounding on a keyboard, your problem is not digital."
Yeah.
Right? Like, your problem is not that, you've got a technical vulnerability. Your problem is that you're 50 feet away from, like, a creep, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes a lot of the things we communicate is, if your problem is X, that's not your problem. Your problem is actually this
Right.
one over here that is often much simpler than the complicated CVE.
The problems that we face in security are often kind of driven by that proximity. Because I've done plenty of security assessments. I did a security assessment for a city pool, and they had wireless, and so I noted. And then I forgot to test it while I was inside, so I went back out to my car, and I was like, "Oh, I didn't circle back to the wireless." Opened it back up. I could still see it from the parking lot. I scanned around, looked for stuff. Okay, looks like some probably people that are using the Wi-Fi at the pool and at the fitness center. And then, oh, what's this? Oh, hey, it's got a web page. Opened it up. It was the chemical mixing system for the pool, and just wide open. Now, thankfully, it was on only a internal network, but if you were in the parking lot, you could decide that you could dump a whole mess of chlorine into the pool. You could kill people. But
That's
the proximity of that
happened
means that
the one in Florida. I remember the hacker that got into the water.
The water system. We've all, for those of us who've ever, like, played around on Shodan, you've seen those things that it's like, oh my God, that should not be on there. And those are the serious problems that need to be tackled. The local pool that has their mixing system on the wireless, it's a terrible idea, but you don't have to worry about an adversary from overseas misusing it. It's not, there's going to have to be other hoops they have to jump through to get to it. You still don't want it out there for people to tinker with, but it's that understanding that proximity. So yes, for the people at Teen Vogue, the readers of Teen Vogue, they, yes, this is a problem, but only if there's somebody outside your house, which that now begs the problem or question of, how did they know to go to your house? Like, that's a security issue of a bigger section,
It is.
Like haircut fish. The trouble is more local than global.
Exactly. I was just going to say, hey, I was just going to say, this really goes to it, right? Like, the who likes to make write-ups anyway. We joke a lot in this industry. Yes. The joke in this industry is, why is this, it's 1% fun and 99% report writing. And I feel like there's opportunities to solve for those problems, but I also feel like report writing is the art of trying to get across the important and urgent in prioritized order.
Yep.
And that's a really difficult thing to do. And it goes directly to the cognitive load problem that we're talking about. If you're running a small business, like I'm sitting here right now, James, I know you run an awesome business as well, but I have under 10 employees right now, right? And so I'm the person who's filing for healthcare and making sure the labor and industries tax is handled and making sure the payroll tax is handled in multiple states because we're a remote company. And I feel like I'm failing at those things a lot of the time, honestly. I mean, do they empirically get in, mostly more or less? Yeah, but life is not perfect. And it is really difficult to do all of the individual things that are required to keep my business compliant. And I think only people who own small businesses really can understand the I mean, any business, not just the kind of businesses we're talking about or MSPs. I mean, just anybody who runs a company with less than 50 people,
Yeah.
it can understand the feeling of I'm not a specialist in HR or law or the kinds of things that I need to do, but I am personally the fiduciary for this company, and it's my job to put my name underneath. Yes, I think this was done the right way. Yes, I'm going to pay this tax. Yes, this is the correct way to do it. I have to attest to these things, and I have to trust people to tell me what the right thing is to do. I got to trust my accountant, the lawyers. I got to trust people who are providing me products to help, the healthcare specialists.
Yep.
And ultimately, I'm going to listen to what they say, but I'm only going to have a limited amount of time with each one of them, and I need them to boil it down for me.
Yeah.
I really do.
Well, and screwing up your payroll taxes will get your company shut down just as quick as ransomware. The difference is that the ransomware operator might actually negotiate with you. The government may just say that's cute, but we've also tacked on interest into what you owe. And so there's all these things that can get your business taken offline or just put into a bad situation. And whatever your job is, you can only you only have the knowledge to control a couple of those things. So like I mentioned, like a kid's dentist. Okay. Don't pull the wrong tooth. If you pull the wrong tooth, you have now hosed your own business. But at the same time, make sure you're paying your payroll taxes. Make sure you're not clicking on crap that's going to, get you ransomware. So you can only control what your expertise allows. And then you have to find those trusted advisors in all the other things.
Mm-hmm. And it's on us as people who are in cybersecurity to communicate well to people when there is a vulnerability that is not only something that is severe and dangerous to them, but relevant to them. So that relevance is really difficult. How relevant is it to have somebody these days worrying about something like, I don't know, Spectre or Meltdown in a small business? Chances are very good that even if they have a piece of hardware that's vulnerable to it, it's not the piece of hardware that's storing the relevant information. Most small businesses at this point have migrated most of the keys to the kingdom to the cloud. And when I say keys to the kingdom, I mean email. I flatly mean email.
Yeah.
And O365, Google Workspace, whatever you're using, that email provider, that's the one that you're securing more than anything else. And your problem there is not, I'm desperately trying not to use the words highfalutin right now. Your problem there is not something that's getting broadcast from CISA. Your problem is the first question we ask everybody in Dyna, which is your home and work email password different? That's all I want to know right now, right? Like I don't know what percentage of cybersecurity problems could be solved by the right answer to that question, but I'm going to go with over half.
Yeah.
Maybe.
I know I've heard a stat. I have to take it with a little grain of salt because it does seem high, but Microsoft has said that somewhere in the neighborhood of 95% of the attacks that Microsoft sees could have been solved with 2FA. That might be a little high, but I can definitely say, hey, because email is truly that keys to the kingdom. If I can get into a victim's email, I can become the victim. That we are such a email driven society now and chat to a certain point. But if I can get your email, chances are I can reset all of your line of business application things so that I can now control them. I probably have access to your bank. I have access to your employees. I can get people to do stuff for me that they shouldn't do, like transfer money. We've dealt with those situations in the past, and email is truly that linchpin to a business, and to get in there because you had the same password that got leaked because of your I don't even know, Disney Plus account. I mean, actually the Disney Plus accounts were compromised because of other compromises, people using the same passwords. So
it completely is. Ed has got a good point on this one too. It's so funny. We were talking yesterday. There's we're going to be. I don't want to go too deeply into this, but there's a lot of ways to solve problems that don't involve passwords anymore, right? Passkeys, SSO, a lot of opportunities there. And I've been informed by my team that I'm not allowed to jump up and down and shout about new features until they're all the way done with them, but fine. So the thing that I wanted to point out here is there are people right now implementing passkeys, which is a way to make sure that the person who is making a request is on a device that has been previously authorized. I've often explained this to people as you don't have to remember the password anymore, your computer will, and they don't often have an easy time understanding what I mean about the difference between that and just a session storing a password. Right. It's difficult to understand the difference between those two things, especially when I start saying things like, virtual machines are imaginary computers, and they're like, stop talking to her. So
their business is inside a strip mall.
Yeah. Yes. Oh my God, they are. That's exactly what they are.
I explained it to my 10-year-old that way.
That's great. We talk right now. We're still, I think, password managers. Edna's got a great point. We've got to start getting people to stop reusing passwords. And using a password manager, but I genuinely think that a password manager is the bridge effort to two things. First of all, the good implementation of things like WebAuthn and passkeys, but also the kinds of things that involve security by design. CISA, the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, has made a huge push to see organizations like anybody building a software product at all, using memory safe languages, using security by design. And this shouldn't be on the end user. We don't disagree with you. It's just, this is where this problem is sitting, right? Small company, right? I'm the one that still vacuumed the room last night after the chips were on the ground, right? So it still lands on you whether it should or shouldn't. Right. That's the way that it is.
And password managers are great, but they still, if you don't use it the way it's designed to, if your vault password is still the name of your dog, you're not helping. You might as well go back to the book. You might as well go back to the random book. And I know there'll be people that'll scoff at it, but I bet between Tarah and I, we could sit and come up with use cases for a password book that apply to small business, medium businesses, and even to an enterprise.
Absolutely.
If there's a CISO that's out there that has some of the like super critical like encryption key and those kind of password stuff, writing it down is not a horrible idea, and stuffing it in a place in a deposit box that's 100 miles away from your office, that's not a terrible idea. That could be the thing that saves the day for the business. Physical media is still media, and it doesn't expire the way that a lot of the other ones do. So you can find uses for it. It's making that path easier for people. Passkeys, things like that, biometrics, all of those will be there, but getting the adoption and getting it so that it's easy to use, those are the important things.
Yeah, easy to use, and also at least for the moment, we still have to make people understand them. Right? Like I have a tough time sometimes getting people to understand why I want them to move to a password manager. Because what I tell them is, I want you to stop using the same password everywhere. You need to have strong, unique passwords for every place you go to on the internet. And I want you to put them in a password manager, and it's just going to have one password that you have to remember. And they say, so I still just have one password?
You have one password. The manager
And I look at it and I go, yeah, but getting people to understand that is also hard if they're not familiar with what we're talking about.
Right.
And so you have to fall back on, look, just do what I tell you to do.
Yep.
That's hard because it goes straight back to that example at the beginning of this conversation where someone's like, I don't know what's happening here. Just tell me what to do and I'll do it. And they want to help. And it's, this is that moment where it's so hard to deal with because, one password, a vault password is a skeleton key, right? And the problem with skeleton keys is they open every kind of lock that operates with them, right? I'm just walking around. There's just a batch of skeleton keys sitting over here. So I was like grabbing them on the side while James is talking. That's what we're talking about is now there's a skeleton key. You got to keep that password safe. We got to do something. Okay. I'm loving this one over here. Here we go. I declare bankruptcy. 100%.
Then why did you get in business in the first place? This is so, years ago, gosh, I wish I had the drop in the link would have been awesome. So there was a small doctor's office, small town, Michigan, couple doctors. They were close to retirement age. They got breached. They had a ransomware event, and they told the ransomware operators, Paxand, we're not paying the ransom, and they just decided to close the practice and walked away. I don't remember how big the town was, but that's impacting to neighborhood. That's impacting to your community. People probably had follow-up appointments, all of that stuff. And oh my gosh, yes, thank you. I figured somebody to have it nice and easy, but that is just, I really hope they took their retirement money and they got out of state because, that's like spitting on your own town. So if you're going to have that mentality, and we do run into companies that if I ask them, so what would you do if you got hacked? Well, I'll probably take, early retirement. Cool. Do your employees know about that? Like, are they good with suddenly not getting a paycheck? Are your customers good with it? Especially if you are providing something useful, like that's messed up. I mean, we're in business to obviously provide a service, get paid for our work, but there's kind of this social contract of I want to do this and I want to keep doing it, and I don't want to take away what I offer to the community. So if you're going to get business and then you're going to be like, we got, burned down, we're not going to rebuild. That sucks. Why pay your insurance then? Why do this? I could go on for that. Like that stuff gets me heated, like the lack of fight that you sometimes see.
Yeah. Well, and I just pasted in there, this is a quote from that article, which goes to this cognitive load. The doctors said, look, we're going to stop. We don't, even if we paid it, we don't have a way to guarantee that they wouldn't come back. And that says to me, first of all, that they didn't have a good service provider like you, James. But second, because any of the people I can think of, LMG Security out of Missoula, right, that have done incredibly important ransomware negotiations and cyber insurance, work before. I think of the great, service providers I know that would have been able to assist in a case like this. And I look at this and go, these guys looked at this and they said, even if we could pay this and we got our data back, we don't know that it's not going to happen again. And that says they were tired. Yeah. They were tired. They didn't know what to do. No one was communicating well with them. Respectfully, I think probably almost any one of their patients would have paid the ransom by themselves to get their medical records back.
Yeah.
But that wasn't their decision. And that's one of the hard parts, right? You could sit there and ask yourself, wait, is it ethical that they didn't pay that low demand ransom? And the questions get complicated, and I can understand why someone would be like, what do we do?
Yeah, it's an area where, like you said, they didn't have somebody to talk to, and maybe they didn't have somebody to talk to because they felt embarrassed, or they, or maybe there was just a lot of snake oil, that they've seen, there's so many reasons that they maybe didn't bother to reach out, but yeah, they just decided, you know what, screw it. Let's close up shop and do what we want to do, or whatever. And the thing is that doesn't fix the problem. Fixing the problem of ransomware, that's a conversation that's going to require way more alcohol than we can muster up right now. But it's not an area. It's not an area that we can we can help people before or after, and we much prefer to help them before. So one of my clients calls and says, I think we got hit with ransomware. We at least have a few steps that we can start with. But I've also taken clients from other IT providers that know us and say, hey, I think this customer got compromised, and I have no starting point. I have to sit there and say, well, what do you got for me? Well, we don't have any logs. We don't have any of this. Okay, well, let's start from the really basics, and let's just start looking at event logs until our eyes bleed. And that's never a way to go into an engagement. So and with so many companies that are out there, I mean, yes, we absolutely will take on, as many clients as people want to throw our way, but there are 13 million businesses in the United States that have 9 or less employees.
Yeah.
And most MSPs will not touch them with the full service package that they might offer. They'll say, no, our minimum is this, and unless you want to pay $200 an endpoint, we're not going to work with you. But talk to somebody. If you're a security professional and you're watching this, go talk to a local business.
Yeah.
And even if you never actually frequent them, just say, hey, I do security stuff, and I just want to give you some free advice. And if you don't know how to phrase the advice, people like Tarah and I are great. I mean,
honestly, I'd be modest right now, but no, I'm pretty good at that. That's literally the thing I do.
Explaining it. If I can help my 10-year-old understand how virtualization works by comparing it to strip malls and retail stores, then we can help a business owner understand why security good, ransomware bad. And it's not done from a standpoint of selling things to make a ton of money. It's done from the standpoint that I don't want another medical practice to close and leave a bunch of people hanging. I don't want my favorite coffee shop to be shut down. There was just a week ago or so, I posted it to my Twitter. Somebody hacked a Christmas tree store.
I was a mobile Christmas tree farm. I saw it on LinkedIn too. That was awful.
For those of you watching who aren't really familiar with how kind of a Christmas tree store might look like, you have a farm with trees. You probably have an office with a couple computers. And then you have a place where they have chopped trees and they're selling them out of a damn parking lot of some abandoned like Remax building or something. And that's it. I've seen a bar get hit with ransomware, which goes to the whole, you're not too small to get hacked. Mm-hmm. You just maybe haven't been hit yet. But if bad guys are out there popping Christmas tree stores and actually posting the countdown to when their data goes bye-bye, like they don't care.
Right.
It's money to them. It's easy money to them, but that is a livelihood to a business. I mean, basically whatever ransomware operator that was, whoever's coming up with these funny, cool names of threat actors, if that one doesn't have the word Grinch in it, then they really failed at their marketing.
Right.
It needs to be like slovenly Grinch. They go after Christmas stores or something. I don't know.
I hate it. I absolutely
hate
it. Don't attack Christmas. That's not the war on holidays that everybody's okay with right now.
Right.
We'll do that one. Yeah, that is a bad one. If I was gonna, I love James's advice to go talk to people, and I've been doing that so much of that as well too. Just talk to people, and you learn all of a sudden that the report writing, it may be required, but that's not really what gets across. It's the 2 or 3 carefully crafted analogies that gets across. So I love James's advice. If I was going to give any advice on this one, it would be, and you're gonna hate this, everybody, but find a way to get started earlier than you think you should, because by the point at which you've experienced hundreds of thousands of dollars in business email compromise, ransomware, and ransomware is scary. Business email compromise is almost worse because of the guilt, the personal impact, the person who made a mistake. It's devastating often. Ransomware, you can be like, some jackass did this outside the company. Business email compromise is devastating inside a company.
Yeah.
It's still a fraudulent actor, but it often goes very much along with security practices that somebody mistook or did something wrong with. So that's hard, really hard, as opposed to ransomware where you're always just chasing whatever the latest patch is.
Well,
Start early.
Yeah. And typically ransomware affects that business alone. Business email compromise. And we've unfortunately had clients come our way because of a business email compromise. And it wasn't their money that was stolen. it was their customers' money that was stolen
Mhm.
because an attacker got in the middle of it and had the money rerouted. That creates so much, distrust, frustration, anger, just in that whole thing. And you are, if this is a relationship that you have built, if this is a repeat customer, you've maybe wrecked that forever. And yes, insurance, somebody along the way may make you whole, but it's still going to be the thing of this company that I trust, they messed up somehow.
Yeah,
So
I hear it. We can blame the Grinch all we want, but that's the hard part about this, right? The ultimate responsibility lies with those of us who sign our names on the bottom of the piece of paper.
yeah.
And it's very difficult to replace trust once it's been broken, even if it's been done unintentionally or by an external actor. It's so hard. I would love to know if anybody else got any questions. We're gonna wrap up reasonably soon after I ask the fun last question I'm gonna have for James in a second. But James, any last thoughts on information security? Do you want to let everybody know about this week?
Just, this is for IT and security companies. This time of year is tough because we're all full of sugar, and we have time off, and we don't know what the heck we're doing, and the bad guys know that. So for those of you that are in the industry, be vigilant this time of year. But if you have small businesses or know people with small businesses, they don't have to go out and buy the $1 million new thing. Just take a step. Ask them, hey, do you know how many computers you have? Do you actually know how many computers you have? You can't protect what you don't know exists. That's a step. Take one step and then talk to them about the next step.
Mm-hmm. I absolutely love it. Thank you so much, James. Secure Point Solutions out of Iowa. I send people I care about who need help to James, and you should too. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so last question. You get to answer the same question that Wendy Nather answered last week and that Chris Weldpond-Weisopel is going to answer for us next week, which is, if money were not an object, like not unreasonable quantities of billions of dollars, but if money weren't an object and you weren't doing this job, what's the job you wish you were doing?
Food truck. I would run a food truck, and I wouldn't have a menu. Like, I would just be like, look, my food truck's there. I'm going to make some stuff, and it might be scallop pad thai one day. It might be al pastor tacos. It might be, it might be damn meatloaf that my wife makes. But I've joked, like, people, as a business owner, you always get asked, what's your exit strategy? Or what would you do, or like, what would you do if you, like, are you ever going to have a brick and mortar building or whatever? If money was no object, I love that idea, Amanda. A brunch food truck. Hell yeah. Brunch is amazing. I could get French fries and an omelet and a latte. But if
eggs in a waffle cone.
Yes. But if like, my exit strategy in a way, or my strategy, if I ever have like a building and I'm going to ask people to start coming into an office, I'm changing my title. I'm going to become the chief cooking officer. I'm going to have the most badass kitchen in our building, and I am going to feed my SOC. I'm going to feed my staff. I'm going to make sure that there's food set up for even my night shift, so they don't get the end shaft. They get to walk in and be like, ooh, hey, James made some lasagna, and all we got to do is just pop the pan in the oven. We got lasagna. Yeah, food truck would be my no money object, because then you could kind of, you're at that point where you have what I like to call FU money, where if somebody walks up and says, I didn't really like this food. Okay, cool. Come back tomorrow. I'm going to make something different.
Wonderful. God, I love every part of that. That's absolutely amazing. And it's joy-filled, right? I love that everybody keeps coming up with things that are joy-filled and communicative. Wendy was going to be a diplomat. And I was like, don't you already talk to everybody around the world at every high governmental level about the thing that you care about and get them to do what you want them to do? And she's like, yeah. And I was like, I got some good news and some bad news.
but she probably doesn't have the FU money yet. She has to do a good job. She has to get people to like her, so then she gets the monies. But if she just had a ton of money and walked up and says, you're doing it wrong and you're doing it wrong, you two work better, and then she could just walk away because she already has the money.
And you do
So
what you do what the woman tells you to do, right?
exactly. You should. You absolutely should. Wendy is one of the good people. So yeah,
Absolutely. So
absolutely.
James, this was absolutely a wonderful talk. I feel like we got a chance to do some good today, and really make people feel heard. I'm seeing people say that this made them feel heard and like they're more willing to answer and ask questions. And I love that that's your first question.
Yeah,
How many computers you have? I'm going to borrow that one too. That's a great first question because it really makes people think. So thank you so much, my friend. I look forward to talking again in future.
absolutely.
Folks, follow James on socials, on Twitter, on LinkedIn. He's a wonderful person who boosts and does great content as well as really helps people. Yeah. So again, I'm Tarah Wheeler. We like to help MSPs, help SMBs. And more than that, we like to have fun and keep people safe. It's a real joy. Thanks again to Red Team Alliance for the space to broadcast today. And yeah, have a wonderful, wonderful week, everybody. I look forward to it. Same time next week with Chris Wildpond Weisopel. Thanks, everybody. Bye just for now.
Bye.